everyone, welcome to the 5 Beer Plan. I'm Brian, and this is the ongoing saga of an everyman's ale trail. In this episode, I'll kick off the new year with my introduction to hops, chat with Chris and Trevor from One Well Brewing in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and review Dragon Fruit Calamansi from Vault City Brewing. Happy New Year! In this inaugural segment of Looking for Lupulin, we're going back to school and learning about the basics of hops. So buckle up and get ready to nerd out on a little bit of hop history. So what are hops? Hops are the flowers of the plant known as Humulus lupulus, which is part of the hemp family, which of course includes the well-known cannabis. Male and female plants exist for the plant. The hops are also referred to as cones and are suspended on the vine by a strig, which is just a fancy name for a stem. The papery outer covering of the cone is called a bract. If you were to cut the cone in half, you would see several chambers called bracteoles, which contain the lupulin glands. These glands contain the highly sought-after resins and essential oils that give beer its flavor and aroma. Each spring, the roots of the plant send up twining vines called bines. The bines are trained to climb a trellis that is made of string or even wire. This gives them plenty of sun and allows for more growth potential to the flowers instead of the supporting strength of the vine. The plants themselves can grow 15 to 20 feet above the ground. I know they can grow taller, as my first hop plant grew to over 30 feet as it wound itself up my television antenna tower. The roots are susceptible to disease and therefore must be planted in well-drained soil and get upwards of 6 to 8 hours of sun to thrive. The climate between the 35th and 55th parallels are well suited for growing and encompass a majority of the world's hop production. Ethiopia is the world's largest producer of hops, followed by the United States, Germany, the Czech Republic, and China. The Yakima Valley in Washington state leads the way, growing around 70% of the U.S. total production. Interestingly, a Chinook hop grown in Washington has a spicy or piney profile, but the same Chinook hop grown in Michigan has a more citrusy profile. This is due to the difference in the content and quality of the soil. The name of the area where hop plants are cultivated depends on the region where they're grown. Hop farms, hop fields, or even hop yards will have rows of hops about 8 feet apart. Within each row, the hop plants are spaced 3 feet apart to allow for plenty of sunlight and air circulation. Harvesting hops occurs anywhere from mid-August to early October depending on the variety. In the early days, hops used to be hand-harvested, which was very time-intensive, but made more efficient with the invention of the mechanical hop separator in 1939. Portable machines are now used in modern hop yards. Because of the aggressive and innovative way that hops are used in the craft beer industry, we may think of IPAs as only using them. However, hops are used in a variety of ways and are essential to nearly every beer that is brewed. Hops are separated into 2 categories, bittering and aroma. Many hop varieties used today are what are known as dual use, meaning they can be used either for bittering or for aroma. So what are the differences between the 2 types? Well, bittering hops have a larger amount of what are known as alpha acids. The range can be anywhere from 5 to 19% alpha acids by weight, or AABW. The longer hops are boiled in the brewing process, the more bitter the flavor profile can become. This occurs through what is known as isomerization, which is a fancy chemistry term for transforming one substance into one or more other substances. Aroma hops have smaller amounts of alpha acids, typically less than 5% AABW, and this is a sweet spot where the other essential oils can shine through. These hops are added late into the boil, anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes remaining in the process. At 30 minutes, for example, this will impart some hop taste to the beer. At 10 minutes remaining, this will impart some hop aroma. If hops are added while the mixture is cooling or fermenting, this is what's known as dry hopping. As you might expect, different hops can lead to different flavor or aroma profiles. Varieties can lend profiles that in the brewing industry are often described as fruity, citrusy, tropical, earthy, grassy, spicy, or even piney. So the next time you sit down with a pint of your favorite beer, start to think about what you're detecting in the flavor or the aroma. In next month's segment, I'll highlight my first hop variety, Cascade. In this segment of Homebrew Hijinks, it's time to prep the equipment and get ready for brew day. As mentioned before, this has been on my agenda for over 2 years, so it was finally time to give it a try. I'm using a Kama Citra Session IPA kit from Northern Brewer. It contains everything I need for this undertaking. This kit has a nice 2-gallon glass fermenter jug with a spigot on it, which will undoubtedly make bottling much easier down the road. Since I had not yet put anything together, this was my first step. The fermenter needed to be leak-proof, so it took me 4 attempts or so to make sure the spigot was good and tight. I didn't want to damage the plastic parts, which is why it took me so long. Hopefully, I won't have to worry about this step for future brews. The kit came with a rinse-free sanitation powder. Basically, I put 1 gallon of hot water in the fermenter, dropped in the powder, and stirred it up. Later on in the process, just before I ferment, I actually will place the lid back on and swish it around to make sure the inside surfaces are fully sanitized. I also used a permanent marker on the outside of the glass jug to place a mark where the 1 gallon position was. The only other things I needed to prep at this point were my 1 gallon plastic pitcher and my 2 gallon stock pot. Basically, I just rinsed them out and made sure that they were clean. As the instructions note, if your water is good enough to drink, it is good enough to brew with. And finally, I really poured over the instructions because I really want to do this right step by step. So that's also an important part of this process until you get familiar with it and are able to do it on your own. Next time, we'll start mashing the grain and boiling the wort. Welcome to Barstool Banter. I'm sitting down virtually with Chris O'Neill and Trevor Klimek from One Well Brewing in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Gents, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to join me on the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Can you please tell me what your roles are there at One Well?
So I'm Chris, and I am the owner, founder of One Well Brewing. When we first opened the business, I was the head brewer, I was the lead bartender, I was the marketing and relations, human resources, you name it, that was me. So now, 8 years in, I have about 50 employees, and running the company now takes up most of my time.
My name is Trevor. I'm the head brewer and production manager here at One Well. Came onto the team just over a year after Chris opened, and it was such a cool brewery doing things the right way that I really wanted to be a part of it.
Excellent. My cousin, who actually lives in Otsego, told me about One Well several times. He said it was a great place to hang out, play darts, have some beers. So I've always wanted to get over there. And when I finally did so, I was really shocked at how much you have there. Stacks of games, dartboards, foosball. What was the whole inspiration behind the concept of the brewery?
Before the brewery ever opened, a lot of people my age, I'm 38, it's a lot of video game players, that kind of stuff. And so, when me and my buddies would get together when we were younger, we'd get together and play video games, but come to realize that all we were doing was just kind of locking into the TV and really not interacting with each other. So early on, maybe later in college, I started a board game collection, and that way I could get the friends together. We could interact more, talk more, drink some more beers, all of that good stuff. So I built up this large board game collection, and after the brewery opened, I didn't have a lot of free time. And so I kept thinking, man, all these board games are just going to sit here doing nothing. Or maybe we bring them in and make that part of our deals. We've been open 8 years and never had a TV in the spot for sports and that kind of stuff. And the board games, the pinball, the arcades, that kind of stuff is what we have as our activities to kind of fill that in. Really the idea behind One Well is the community gathering place where people gather to drink, share ideas, art, and culture. And so the idea was to put stuff together that people could still interact with each other while enjoying a beverage and not just get locked into whatever sport might be on the TV. So growing up, an arcade was awesome. So seeing a lot of the barcades do their thing, I contacted a gentleman around here about getting some arcades in, and first started off with Double Dragon, a Donkey Kong, and a Xenon pinball. And
Nice.
After open, we realized that, people were playing the pinballs quite a bit. People were enjoying the arcades. So that expanded to where now we have a 55 pinball, 28 arcade machines, pool tables, foosball, all of that in an arcade space that's about 5,000 square feet. So really just kind of took that idea as people really jived with wanting to maybe have activities while they're drinking instead of just sitting there, and, open that opportunity up for Kalamazoo. And so now, we're definitely one of the biggest arcades in Michigan as a whole, and definitely the largest place in Southwest Michigan.
Cool. I know when we drove up, then I saw the brewery on one side and then, Wizards Pinball Palace on the other side. I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. They're side by side. It'll be fun. I go and check out pinball arcade games because that was always one of the things that, we always did growing up as well. So I like that your concept, same kind of way, you're connecting people together through common interests. And the name makes sense to me too. Back in biblical times, people would gather at the well, and that's where they would talk and gather, and or even in the offices, you gather at the water coolers. So I love that whole idea of one well, that everybody's getting together at the well, having a good time, and enjoying each other's company. Cool.
When you talk about that as being in the past, but that actually in a lot of areas is still the case today. So when we first came up with the logo for the brewery, I walked into one of the stores around here, one of the gas stations, and the gentleman behind the counter looked at the logo of the brewery and said, "Man, this really reminds me of the well in my hometown." And so when he said that, I instantly was like, what happens? Like, what takes place at this well that you guys have? And he explained that, that was where the women took the kids during the day to do the laundry. And that way they could all kind of watch the kids together, and the older folks would gather and play checkers or chess. And so literally this gentleman said, in my hometown in India, this is literally what happens at our well. So when I heard that from him, that just kind of validated everything that we had really worked to set up and the logo that we chose for the brewery.
Very cool. Serendipitous.
And the well never runs dry.
That's cool. So you mentioned, Chris, the space is like 5,000 square feet. Does that include the brewery as well as the Pinball Palace?
So the arcade is 5,000 square feet, and the rest of the pub space is 8,000. So we're combined about 13,000 square feet here at the tap room. And then the production facility started off at 10,000 square feet. It used to be a meat production facility, so it used to cut all of the steaks. And as a vegetarian, it's kind of funny that we took this building that cut all of the steaks for the local food purveyor here in the area and are now making beer there. And then since we moved in, we've expanded with 2,000 additional feet of cooler space. So now the production facility is about 12,000 square feet, and then about 13,000 square feet here at the pub. Wonderful seating space, not even including our patio.
Right. Well, that was one thing I was going to mention too, that the day I was there, it was a little bit chilly, but I noticed that patio area outside, and it has a pretty fun name, just like all of your beers do. What's that all about?
The idea with the Wizard and the Bigfoot, was kind of this idea of who would hang out at this magical well if this magical well was in the middle of a fantasy land, if you will. And so we imagined that the Wizard and the Bigfoot would hang out at the well. So when you walk into our space, the initial side, so we've done 3 expansions now. And so the initial space, we call the cabin space. And the cooler is painted like the Wizard's cabin. And so when you look at that, that's kind of where the Wizard lives. And then when we expanded into our new space, our woodworker wanted to work a tree, a fallen tree that he had some attachment to into the space. So we actually have a beautiful table that has a tree that comes out of it.
That's awesome.
And then we decided that space would be the forest space. So we have the cabin side, the forest side, and then we leaned into that with the patio space, and that's the campground. So we have the campground space outside to, allude into that idea of being outside. And then when it came to the arcade, that has a lot of clouds. So we're thinking like Jack and the Beanstalk kind of wizard palace for pinball here in the sky. A lot of intention behind the naming and really the understanding of what the space is and, how we talk about it.
That makes a lot of sense. Again, the space is just very, very cool, Chris. So congrats on that.
He moved his living room from his house to the pub.
It's great because a lot of the feedback that we get when people come in is they say, it's a strip mall. We didn't really expect very much.
Yep.
And then once we walked in, we feel like we were transported to a whole nother space. And so, in the modern day and age, the idea of finding like really cool buildings is awesome, but with a lot of retrofit for that and not a lot of opportunity to find these beautiful buildings. We really took a space that maybe not had the best restaurant choices there before and transformed that into something that the neighborhood now is just so high on. In the beginning, there was talk of potentially moving sites just for space wise. And now it's just the idea of moving is, not an idea just because we are the community. We're our neighborhood watering hole, that neighborhood bar pub feel.
So are you able to use your outdoor space in the wintertime? I know a lot of places have like the whole winter shanties and igloos, or is it mainly just a 3 season when the weather's warm?
Yeah, I mean, once COVID was happening and things started shutting down, I mean, we definitely leaned into the outdoor space and worked on getting heaters under the tables and doing all of that stuff. And customers really did appreciate that. But, now that you're able to be inside, one of the ideas we had is maybe bring that back for a weekend or, a special event in that realm. But, the work involved with bringing heaters in and out, filling propane tanks, almost on a daily basis, we're definitely happy to invite our customers into our warm space here. And then, like I said, we may be looking at doing some events this winter and coming up where we say, hey, don your winter jacket and come drink some beer in the cold with us. But what we were seeing is that, when people had the opportunity to be outside or be inside, the choice was surely made to be warm and cozy and not to be freezing.
Yeah. So how many people can you sit comfortably in your space in the pub?
So, I mean, we're about 400. That's going to be some stand and mingle. When you think about the space that we have in the arcade, plus the table space that we have, I mean, we have probably 70 tables. And, those tables are all mostly 4 tops to 10 tops. It's a really big space. And especially when you consider the outdoor space, when the weather does turn to a little bit nicer, we see another 18 tables outside.
Clearly with the space, with the board games, with all the activities there, your place is very family friendly. I know when we were there, we saw a lot of families that were there. Do you have events and things that actually cater to families there at One Well?
Yeah, every Saturday and Sunday afternoon.
Okay. Is that
I'm
the
a
drinking?
Yeah, how many compliments we get that parents are able to come and relax for a few hours with their kids hanging by their side is just unbelievable. For the people that have families and still want to be able to get out and party a little bit, just a little bit earlier in the day.
Well, and with the board games and with the arcade, I mean, the whole idea is to be able to bring people together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, a lot of activities, especially surrounding drinking, are ones where your parents get a babysitter and don't allow you to come with, right?
Yep.
And I always felt like if a family can be together and enjoy alcohol in a responsible manner, it surely helps to teach your children that you can have a couple beers, you can be a responsible adult and still do the right thing, and that doesn't make you a bad person. And I think that is the biggest thing is, growing up, my mother was basically a don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's bad. Don't do it. When realistically, everything in moderation, right? And
yes.
So if you find a good balance of enjoying tasty beverages and being a reasonable human, then I think we can all be in a good spot there. And so I really do feel like promoting responsible drinking by being able to include family as part of your normal everyday activities, I think does promote more responsible behavior. And, and again, the idea of getting together with your family and maybe playing a game is better than leaving your kids at home and saying, well, we'll just let somebody else watch them and take care of them. Really, the idea is a place to bring people together, right? Bring your family together, bring your community together, bring your friends together, all of that. And come by yourself if you want. You'll meet some new friends.
Indeed. What other kind of events do you hold there?
We used to hold a lot more events, and with things shutting down, we really kind of wanted to make sure that we put our focus on, hammering down the everyday. So our goal actually for 2023 is to get back to having more events. We had a very successful block party where we were able to shut down the road right by us, have some live entertainment, again, bring the community together. We brought in some community partners. Kalamazoo is the home of Checkered Cabs. It's the home of Gibson Guitars. It's the home of Shakespeare's Rods and Reels. We were really excited to be able to work with the Gilmore Car Museum and showcase a checkered cab here, showcase some of the local food talent with a lot of the local food trucks, and just kind of have a celebration of Kalamazoo and what we're doing here. So we're hoping to be able to get back to some of that stuff. We throw our annual anniversary party. In the past, we've done tie-dye events where we had stuff to do tie-dyes and got in some cool white One Well shirts to tie-dye. We have a pinball league that meets twice a month here, a dart league every week, trivia on the weekends. So, I mean, we're really trying to, again, cultivate these communities. You know, the pinball community has grown to be about 60 regular participants with maybe another 20 to 40 here and there participants.
Fun.
And then the Dart League started maybe with about 15 people, and the Dart League has grown over 40. So, I mean, all of these things that we're doing, you know, we want to make sure, like we don't overdo it to the point where our regular guest or our out-of-town visitor doesn't get too crazy bombarded with, you know, special event stuff, and that they can still kind of hang out and have a good time with our regular shtick. So some of it's kind of a good balance back and forth of making sure that every day is a special event here when it comes to having all of the amenities that we have here. And then also trying to do some of the extra special stuff for our regular guests so that they can continue to, you know, really come together with what we have going on here and be proud of a place that they support on a regular basis.
That's great. Everybody knows that Elvis is still alive, and he lives someplace there in Kalamazoo. Have either one of you had any kind of celebrity sightings there at One Well?
One of my favorite bands is Green Sky Bluegrass, and I was lucky enough to enjoy some beers with Mike Bont, the banjo player from the band. That was a pretty cool moment for me to be able to enjoy my craft with somebody whose craft I enjoy on a regular basis.
Cool. How about you, Trevor? You have anything like that?
Well, I mean, as funny as it is, you know, local celebrities, but nationally known, you know, there's another brewery in Kalamazoo that started in the early 80s. Forgetting what the name that is. You know, they got those.
I think he's talking about Bell.
Oh, yeah. I'm really blessed. They had their eccentric day this last Friday or 2 Fridays ago, and the production manager, John Mallett, brought his team of 10 or 15 people on their party day to come and have lunch at our place and take a tour at our production facility to show them around. So that definitely is gives you some goosebumps when nationally recognized breweries are popping you up and letting you know that you're doing a great job.
Wow, congratulations. That's really neat. So you mentioned the food there. Do you guys have a scratch kitchen then? Because I know you have a pretty decent menu.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely strive not to open bags and pour onto plates. You know, a big part of our being known is with the food menu. And so with the volume that we put in, you know, we try to make everything as scratch as possible. I would definitely not say that we're 100% scratch, but do our best to provide great options for everybody. You know, we smoke all of our own meats in-house. We definitely come up with new ideas on a regular basis. We're kind of switching our focus from doing different specials every week to trying to focus on coming up with new ideas on more of a monthly basis. When we first opened and we were only seating 100 guests, it was kind of easier to come up with new ideas on a regular basis to entice people to come in. But now we're kind of looking at the amount of time and energy that we've spent doing new specials every week and saying, maybe we can do these specials more on a monthly basis and do that in a way that we keep the menu fresh and exciting, but not overthink it. We try to, launch new beers every week or every 2 weeks as well. But trying to make all those shifts in the kitchen on a regular basis has proved to just kind of be a little more difficult. We definitely focus the menu on, an understanding of upscale pub food. So, we want ideas and options of stuff that you would like when you're drinking. So our menu does tend to be a lot of sandwich and pizza heavy. We have some of the greatest nachos around, things like that you can share. Again, back to the community idea is coming up with a lot of these food items that can be shareable. So that way, maybe you want to try something. And then with the menu as well. So I've been a longtime vegetarian, and coming to a lot of places, come to find that there's maybe one option.
A salad.
And so, and salad and drinking don't really go very well. Trust me, unless you are trying to get plastered. Then just eat salad and drink beer and you'll be plastered. I promise you. So when we first opened up, we really made sure that we leaned into the idea of choices for everybody. And so when you look at our menu, most of the items on the menu can start off vegetarian, and then you can add any of our smoked meats, pulled pork, or our smoked brisket. You can add bacon, and then we actually do have some wonderful plant-based options for proteins. So we have a wonderful plant-based fried chicken that we're doing,
Super tasty.
a beef chorizo as well. And so these options kind of give the customer the ability to maybe not pay for a protein that they're not getting. So I found at a lot of places, you're paying the same price whether you ask for the no meat or whether you get the item with the meat. So when we look at our menu, we base that off of a vegetarian start with an add protein. So we have a lot of items that can be vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free. And then for people that love gluten and love meat, we've got tons of glutinous, meatless options. So,
Yeah.
the whole idea is just something for everybody, because most of my friends are not vegetarian. And so going out, sometimes it gets to a point of, well, where do we go that can accommodate everybody? And that's some of the great feedback we also receive, is that our menu really does provide for everybody.
That's a great idea. You've done it in a way that's intentional.
Everything's intentional. I mean,
Yeah.
we got to continue to think about what we're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
I will say that we've kind of lucked into some of the situations that we found to be very successful just through trial and error. But I mean, again, what we're not trying to do was shooting in the dark. But that's kind of one of the things that we talk about in our management meetings a lot, is trying to figure out a future that's more intentional versus reactional. That's been a big change in the company maybe over the last 4 years, is really just trying to look at, well, why are we doing this way? Is this the best possible way? And what could we do to potentially make things more accommodating, easier, more friendly to the customer, but even more friendly to the employee, trying to figure out things that we can do to keep everybody as happy as possible. Again, for me, the success of the business is important financially, but I can judge the success of the business based on the faces of the customer and the faces of the employees. If my employees are happy and my customers are happy and we have a great day, that's awesome. If my customers are happy and my employees are happy and we have a slow day, that's still awesome, because we're still doing what we intend to do, which is to provide a great experience for the people that come in.
Right.
And the employees that come here every day to, trade their time for work.
Yep.
One of the things that I heard in a speech by another business owner was the idea that knowledge drives passion, and the more you know about something and the more passionate you are about that, the happier you're going to be doing what you're doing. I don't think there's much job satisfaction in having a job that you don't really know what you're doing. I know for a fact that somebody that is understanding of their industry and knows that, the more that they do know, the more excited they can be about the job they have. And the more excited, that I am personally to talk about what I do, and being confident in those discussions as well, to have that with other people.
Yeah. Right.
It's amazing, just through an employee's eyes, how the last few years, say 4 years, that everyone's really drinking the same Kool-Aid, and we're all focused on the greater good. When everybody looks at the business together in the same light, and we're not looking personally at ourselves, a lot of really great things can happen. And the bonds between, your coworkers and your employer really can flourish. So it's a really cool thing to be a part of.
And that all starts from the top down. You've got to model that as leaders of the company and let that trickle down so they can actually see, what it is that what you expect them to do as well. So if you can model it, people are going to follow that.
Last call.
It's nearly time to wrap things up, but first, one more for the road. This episode, I'm drinking Dragon Fruit Calamansi, a modern sour beer from Vault City in Edinburgh, Scotland. This beer comes in at an 8.0% ABV. From the side of the 440 milliliter can, it says this: bursting with tropical fruit flavors, our vegan-friendly Dragon Fruit Calamansi sour with Well melon hops is vibrant and thirst-quenching. Sweetness from dragon fruit perfectly complements the tart citrus flavors of lime and lemon from calamansi juice and lemon peel. A generous addition of Well melon hops help dial up the volume of both these amazing fruits, adding intense aromas of honeydew melon and strawberry to this tropical medley. Without further delay, this beer is a gift from one of my beer pals, Daryl, who visited Scotland this year and undoubtedly used one of my hop hacks to get it safely back to the States. I also had to chuckle at the can, which says, "Fresh fruit locked in, shake to wake." So clearly, I'm in for a fruity treat. So when I pop the top on this, it definitely has a little bit of a melony flavor to it. And as I pour it out into my snifter glass, it pours a very lovely kind of cherry red color. It's got a nice pink-hued foam to the top of it. So from a first impression of it, it's not see-through at all. I can see that there are particulates that are hanging out in the beer itself. It seems like maybe this is going to be a little bit more of a thicker pour. The aromas on the nose are amazing. Great tropical citrus, very exotic almost. Certainly not something that I'm necessarily familiar with, and it must be this Calamansi lemon and lime. So first sip impression, wow, that is super tart, and it does have, as I was expecting, a little bit more of a viscous feel on the tongue. Very much a melon-forward beer. I will say I've had, oh my gosh, the tart and the sour just keeps on kind of rolling, even though I've only taken 2 sips. I can't get rid of that sensation in my mouth. I feel like I'm mumbling now. I really like a beer that gives you some really great tartness that just puckers your mouth, and this one certainly delivers quite a punch. You get that initial sweetness on the front, and as it finishes off over your tongue and down into the back of your throat, it almost gives me a little bit of blood orange. I really, really enjoy this. It's got just a little bit of zing from the citrus, from the lemon, the lime. So it's very interesting. So some sour beers, your mouth kind of acclimates to what you're experiencing. I was at a beer tasting recently. I was at beer school at Two Toms in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Shout out to Tom and his team there who do a great job. And we had several different sour beers, ranging from kettles all the way up to barrel-aged sours. And it was interesting that as you went into the sours that were a little bit higher ABV, you really had to let your tongue acclimate to that beer. And the interesting thing with this one, even though I've had 3 or 4 sips now, I've let it sit on my tongue for a little bit, swished it around, it still just gives me intense, tart, puckering sensation in my mouth. If you happen to find yourself anywhere near Vault City, or if you happen to find yourself at a location that would happen to have this beer distributed, I would highly recommend it. If you like the profile of Well Melon hops, it's definitely got that strong melony kind of undertone, but it's also got that great sour tart citrus fruit on it, which is just amazing. I give this one 4 tasters out of 5 on the flight board. Sláinte, Vault City. If you've got a beer you'd like me to drink and describe, leave a comment below. If you're a brewer and have one in mind, direct message me on Instagram and let's see what we can do. That's all for this episode of the 5 Beer Plan. With so many podcasts out there, thanks for choosing to listen to mine. Join me next time as I mash on in my homebrewing adventure and continue my conversation with Chris and Trevor from One Well Brewing in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Remember to hit the subscribe button to be notified of new episodes. I'd love to hear from you, so please follow me on Instagram, 5 Beer Plan 2022, and leave a comment to let me know what your favorite hop variety is. Be sure to support your local breweries, choose your beers wisely, and drink them responsibly. Until next time, keep walking your ale trail and stay thirsty, my friends.